When I was young, my mother would take me out at nights, and we would walk out to the port when the sky was black and moonless. On those nights, she would light a little old gas lamp, the sweet smell of the burning kerosene still fresh in my memory, and she would lower it right next to the water. As the jaundiced flames of the lamp skimmed the surface of the sea, small baitfish would start to appear, twirling like silver leaves in the breeze, slowly making its way next to my mother's hand. There would be 2, then there would be 3, then there would be a whole swarm of them, spinning like angry clouds around the gaslight. I'd squeal in delight as I imagined them as little pixies, and my mother would try to get the fish to follow the light, follow her hand. Those times remain to be the best times of my life. They were the quiet, stolen silvers of happiness that our lives allowed. Because of most nights, we would come home to be beaten by my father. We lived our lives in a quiet, idyllic coastal village, a small town a few hundred kilometers out of the main city. The village had a meager population of 500, enough to sustain itself, but not enough to grow. We lived next to the port, as my father made his living running with the boats that caught milkfish and fed the village. My mother stayed at home. My father would leave early in the morning before I could catch him. He came back later at night, his breath stinking of gin. Some nights he would start with a slap on my face, before yanking his belt out of his pants and thrashing me. On some nights he would do it to my mother. I never understood why. On those nights, my mother would later come to me, her eye sockets bruised and welling with tears, her arms grasping me tight. I'm sorry, she would say. I never understood why. It wasn't her fault. She wasn't the one who hurt me. We would hold each other, and that was all we had, but that was enough. And then, one day, she disappeared. My mother and father had left the house that night to pull in the nets towards the shore. Later on, my father came home alone. He barged inside the house and angrily rummaged through the cupboards for another bottle of gin. He poured himself a healthy glass, drained it, then poured another one again. His hands were shaking. Where's Mother? I asked him. He didn't answer. He just kept draining glass after glass. I asked him again. My father looked at me with wild eyes, red rings around his eyelids. I saw him cry for the first time. She's gone, he said. She was taken. Taken, I asked him, suddenly scared. The fishhooks, son. The fishhooks took her, he said. And he always looked away. I asked the other sailors for weeks afterwards, wanting to know more about the fishhooks. I never got any answers. Some would try to cheer me up. Some would feel sorry for me. Most looked away, or avoided me completely. For years, I believed that there was a monster who took my mother away from me. My father spoke of a monster as this beast, a leviathan that arose out of the water, his skin made of bundled up fishhooks, jagged shards of metal for leather. how the monster's skin would snag on its victims, dragging them and tangling them further as they flailed to escape. How it would drag them to the ocean until the victims gave themselves to drowning. But as I grew up, I saw my father wasting away in his chair. Saw him spend whole days in a daze, barely able to speak, his breath heavy of alcohol fumes. Saw him stopping working. As I took his job, I spent days in heavy work after I got home from school. Slowly, I got stronger, and he got weaker, and slowly, I saw the truth. He was the monster. My mother was caught in his barbs, and it cut her up more every time she tried to get away. He stood up, left his chair one night. I decided to follow him. We had a full moon that bathed everything in a clean, white light. I could see everything clearly. I followed him as he stumbled his drunk mess of a body towards the port. He ambled until he reached the spot where my mother and I used to watch the fish with our gas lamps. I had a gas lamp of my own. I saw him bend down, saw him crumple to the ground, heard his voice as he whimpered to the great big empty of the shore. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I felt the cold of the steel in my right hand, felt the warmth of the lamp on my left, felt the blood rush to my head as I hissed his name, and he stopped and turned. Felt nothing as he looked at me, looked at my hand, and he knew what would happen. Felt nothing as I swung the knife and stabbed him in his evil, withered neck. Felt warmth of his blood spluttering with the fading heartbeats against the back of my hand. Felt an unknown anger as he whispered to me, I tried to save her. Felt nothing again as the light slowly drained out of his eyes. His body crumpled to a bloody heap, lit by the flickering gas lamp in my hand. My knees buckled to the ground. It was done. I looked up at the clear sky, wishing life could be as clean. And then I heard a low thrum, like the sound of a ship's horn from far away. I looked for the source, but it wasn't coming from the horizon. It came from the water below. I held my gas lamp to the edge of the port, lowered the yellow flame against the surface of the water. I saw my face, and then I saw it. Under my reflection was a black mass with small spindles of steel like silver leaves in a breeze making its way towards my hand. A swarm of fish hooks